We will begin our session in just a moment. Good afternoon. I'm Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and it's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce the new era of takeout and delivery, which is sponsored by Lightspeed, and I will be moderating today. Next slide, please. So before we get started, there we go. Let me go ahead and just do a few housekeeping items for us. First of all, the session is being recorded. It is scheduled to last an hour, including the Q&A, which we will have at the end. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you should go ahead and submit them in the questions box found in your control panel, and we will do our best to answer them during the webinar. However, if we have questions we were not able to get to during the webinar, we will go ahead and try to answer them after the webinar. We also are going to be launching a poll towards the end of the session, and we would love to have you answer the poll question prior to exiting the webinar, and I will remind you of that at the end of the session. Next slide. But first, let me just give you a quick background on the International Food and Beverage Technology Association, otherwise known as the IFBTA. We are the industry's nonprofit trade association that's focused on all areas of food and beverage technology. We provide networking and education, and we have membership that's open to everyone who is interested in food and beverage technology, which includes both operators and suppliers and friends to the industry as well, but everybody has an equal seat at the table. We accomplish our mission through our global reach, which includes regional, local chapters, and a virtual chapter as well. And then we have normally industry events that occur at most of the industry's major events around the world. We also offer a certification program to teach operators about all areas of food and beverage technology. And we have many industry partnerships and support, including that with Lightspeed and also Clarion, who puts on the webinars. With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the agenda for today. So first, we're going to be talking about a number of different things, and this is a very operator-focused panel, which is great. And we're going to be talking about customers' changing preferences. We're also going to be talking about how we may be able to take advantage of the challenges and find alternate revenue streams. We're going to talk about the role of technology in the new era of dining and also in our existing era, as long as that lasts. And then we need to talk about the future of the restaurant industry, which is clearly being shaped by the events and the challenges of today. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce our panel. And panel, if you'll turn on your microphones and your video, we will go ahead and get started. So for our panel today, I'm going to be moderating a series of questions, and many of you have also been asked to put in questions, and you can do so during the session as well. After we go through the series of questions, we are going to leave time at the end to answer some of the questions that are submitted by our audience today. So as I mentioned, we have 3 restaurateurs, and we also have a representative of Lightspeed who is going to make sure that we also understand not necessarily what Lightspeed has to offer, but from Lightspeed's perspective, what is available in the industry. And I think the combination between Lightspeed as well as our operators and maybe some additional perspective from the IFBTA, we can really get a good feel from what really is out there. So I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to introduce themselves first. And Brodie Somerville, maybe you would start.
Perfect. My name is Brodie. I own and am the chef at Maynard, which is a vegan comfort restaurant in Montreal, specializing in vegan fast food, a lot of Southern twists, things on Tennessee barbecue, as well as Quebec classics. We had the joys of opening on the 25th of February, so we only know the world that we're currently in, and yeah.
Great. Dustin?
Hi, my name is Dustin Haffner. I've been in restaurants since I was in diapers, basically. And I'm currently operating a restaurant called Burger Burger. We are just outside of Vancouver, and we are an upscale quick serve, focusing on all local ingredients for our burgers, all local meat, all local poultry, all local produce, cheeses. And we also specialize in local craft beer. So we're a burger and beer bar.
Great, and that leads us to Andrew, back to you.
Thanks, Rob. So I'm the manager of Gongfu Bao, a Taiwanese steam bun restaurant in downtown Ottawa. I've also been working in the food industry and the e-commerce and tech industries for about 10 years now. And I'm excited about how we can unite those two things to improve customer and employee experience in the food and beverage industry.
Great, and if we can flip to the next slide, let me introduce Evan Johnston, who is an engineer with Lightspeed. So Evan.
Hey everybody, yeah, thanks for the introduction. My name is Evan Johnston. I'm a sales engineer here at Lightspeed. So I work with customers doing product demos and training, kind of understanding how the product works. I've got about 5 years experience as well as co-owner and operator of a couple bars here in Montreal. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk with everybody today. I think what I'd like to mention first here is a really good quote from our CEO, Dax. I'll just read it. Lightspeed's mission is to bring cities and communities to life by powering independent businesses. And just to elaborate a bit on that, it's at Lightspeed, we believe it's independent businesses, small businesses, your local restaurants, bars. That's what makes a city unique. And so that's really what our focus is on.
Great, well, thank you. So welcome to our panel. So let's go ahead and then go to the first question. So if we can just go ahead and just sort of talk about the customer preferences as they exist today. How have they changed in the last few months for the restaurant industry?
Well, I think, obviously with the onset of the pandemic, things have changed drastically. Even before that though, for years now, there's been a shift towards, a lot more takeout and delivery. Guests want convenience, they want ease, they want simple, they want choices. They want all that with speed, but they also want quality. So, that's in my opinion how restaurants have kind of altered. And since COVID, and our dining room shutting down and opening up again and back to shutting down, depending on where you are, takeout and delivery has had a huge shift, and it's a major revenue stream.
Great. Andrew?
Yeah, I could definitely second what I'm hearing from Dustin there, that it's not so much that things have shifted massively, it's that we're seeing acceleration of changes that were already taking place, like the move towards e-commerce payment models and order ahead. And we're at our restaurant, we've always been a quick service restaurant and sort of focused on takeout and delivery as part of our business. So we're feeling lucky to have that model going right now and feeling a lot of empathy for restaurateurs with big dining rooms and sit down menus who are forced to sort of adapt to this new takeout world.
Yeah, same with us, yeah.
And Brodie?
Yeah, the same thing. I was always planning on doing takeout and delivery because I spent a bunch of years in fine dining, and I think that there's more fun to have with people coming and grabbing and eating outside. There's something about the New York City atmosphere of eating on the side of a curb that I really enjoyed and wanted to bring forward. Also working with some of the limitations on permits in Montreal kind of forced me towards takeout, but I'm super thankful that was the way I got pushed, because I don't think vegan fine dining that was just opening right before a pandemic would have been exactly the best idea. So thankfully we went comfort, and I don't regret that decision at all.
So Evan, I hope you don't mind that I treat you as a co-bar owner and restaurateur for this one, but I'd be interested in your perspective because you're also seeing it from both sides.
Yeah, so if I take on kind of that perspective, here in Montreal, we're in a red zone now. So the bar music venue scene is not seeing a lot of action. In the summer, when we were able to open, and there were some strict regulations, when we were able to open, when customers were able to come in, with spacing and limited capacity, their preferences, if we're talking about this slide here, were really about safety. we're not doing delivery or order ahead necessarily on, bottles of beer. So when customers were coming in, it was, really trying to assure people that we're doing things safely, we're doing the right procedures. That's one thing that I noticed from that side of things. And then in terms of the Lightspeed role, just going to echo everything that everybody else said. Especially Andrew, you'd mentioned that this isn't something that all of a sudden, delivery apps and order ahead apps are exist because of the pandemic. So, I think a lot of places that had these kind of steps placed before we were forced into this pandemic state, they're accelerating and better to handle it even now.
Great. Brodie, I want to put you on the spot for a minute. You opened up, did you say February 25th?
Yes.
Okay, so that's about 3 weeks before the total lockdown, even here in the US. So
2 weeks for us here in Montreal.
I'm going to guess that the idea for your restaurant didn't happen on February 24th. So
no.
Since you've been working on this for a while, you had certain expectations that you were going to open with, but then you see the pandemic hit. So I'm just sort of curious, did you change something prior to opening in your business model? You weren't already open, people didn't know differently. Did something change in your business model just prior to opening?
No, amazingly, this was the exact business model that I had planned with. The moment I signed up for Lightspeed, I had the delivery integrations already in our plan from October when I started. The takeout restaurant was kind of necessitated by the fact that the rules on the plateau here in Montreal are awful for new restaurants. There's a distance clause and a grandfathering clause. So if you want a new space, you had to go takeout. So it pushed me towards being a counter service and heavy on the takeout, and also a whole bunch of trips down in Tennessee where you're getting into a barbecue joint. You're not exactly getting a lot of at the table service anyways. It's very much eating on the hood of your car, and that was the push to bring that into Montreal for our 3 months of summer we get.
So it really didn't, you were prepared to begin with. Dustin, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say what's interesting is that we were the exact opposite in the sense that we opened on February 12th. So 5 weeks basically before the shutdown. And, we were a restaurant that is takeout focused, but I wanted to strengthen my kitchen. So I didn't have delivery when I started. And so once I knew that the dining room shutdown was happening, I quickly got delivery going with the help of Lightspeed, with literally in a couple of days. Jumped on online ordering, got that established. I wanted to get my restaurant kind of as a whole before I did all that, but with COVID, I knew I had to do it right away, and just kind of jumped into it. And with all the integration, it was, surprisingly quick and easy.
Andrew, I didn't know if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, just generally, it's interesting to see the differences between cities, because our owner, Tara Kassan and Emily Wood, they opened as a cart originally. So due to this more open to restaurant sort of regulation we have here in Ottawa, it might be easier to sort of iterate and evaluate business models in a truck or a cart. And I remember living in Montreal, that feeling from restaurateurs of being held back by sort of the excessive regulation of where and when you could sell something.
Yeah, so, we're talking about customer preferences over the last few months. I know that somebody brought up, safety certainly as a preference or a focus area, but let's, you guys are chefs, you're operators in here. When you're talking about customer preference, did any preference, because you're now going to delivery, did you change did you see the preferences change on what they wanted from the menu and how they wanted it, maybe packaged and things like that? Did the customers all of a sudden seem to not want some things and want other things that you had to adapt to?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that we had going is just certain elements that didn't work very well for a takeout or delivery model because they're more fragile. So when you have a server taking it to someone's table and they're eating it immediately, great service, but things that don't hold up as well once they've sat in the back of someone's bike for 20 minutes is like a big thing for us. So we've started offering sort of kits as well with a bit of an assemble at home step to them, just because it'll ensure a sort of better food quality, temperature, and presentation compared to the jam it together in a bun and serve it to someone on a plate.
Did anybody else do some sort of kits or family meals and things like that? And some restaurants actually have been selling raw foods for you to finish preparation at home. So it's sort of an interesting thing.
Meals, that kind of thing.
What was that, Dustin?
Yeah, just doing like packaged meals and put together meals, you know, that you can do at home. We started selling our sauces just recently for retail as well.
Great. So before we go on to the next question, Evan, I want to put you on the spot now with your Lightspeed hat on. Okay, so you take your operator hat on. You know, all three of our panelists today, you know, have really talked about that they were prepared. So they were not offering certain types of services going into it, like delivery, you know, but they were prepared because Lightspeed had the option to do it. Now, I can't say that for a lot of companies. I talk to a lot of restaurateurs and they may be missing a piece, but that's where integration with other services comes in. Putting you on the spot, are there any things that Lightspeed might not have been prepared for that you went ahead and you were able to do very quickly to meet the changing customer demands, which are both your restaurateurs as well as their customers?
Yeah, I think the one thing, I mean, the timing, you know, we all sort of saw it coming, but the timing was pretty quick. The one thing that we tried to be prepared for was the massive amount of requests for things like these delivery integrations and order ahead. So that was, you know, at the beginning, it put a strain on our onboarding and, you know, making sure that people are trained up properly and, you know, support staff who are used to a certain, you know, incremental climb and putting out these services and these requests to, you know, getting slammed. So that was a challenge. We got through it, and you know, we actually were able to pull resources from different aspects of the company to get everybody onboarded and trained up properly. I ended up going back into support just to make sure that people were, you know, able to call and you know, get set up. But yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one.
But we're a challenge for you as well, because if you're used to working in the same spot and you're doing help desk and you're doing support, you can't necessarily do all that. So actually, people tend to forget that it's not just the operator side; it's everybody had to adapt, from the guest to the operator to those who actually supply as well.
You got
perhaps
it.
we can go to the next question, and there we go. So we've started talking about how restaurants have adapted to meet the changes, but maybe we can talk about this a little bit more. We did hear, I think, Dustin, you talked about doing some packaged things. Andrew, I believe you were the one that mentioned food safety, and Brodie, I know that you did some things that you had to adapt to, let's say, past February 25th, you know, that you needed to do. So could we just talk a little bit about your experiences in how you had to adapt to meet the changes, specifically in the dining room, delivery, you know, what specific things you did? Andrew, would you like to start?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say in a sentence is that we've sort of complicated our front of house operations while trying to simplify our back of house operations. Because to meet the sort of sales targets that we need to have a bit of a higher speed in our back of house to meet peak times when you're operating on multiple delivery apps. So we sort of simplified the menu in that step, and then massively complicated the things in the front of house by adding, you know, every sort of ordering option that we can, taking phone orders, in person, online, delivery apps.
Great. Dustin, you know, I know you've done a number of things besides just the packaging.
Yeah, no, so I mean, similar to Andrew, you know, we made sure we got all of our back of house operations in line to handle the takeout and delivery while keeping the dining room safe and trying to operate as best as we could. And then about a month into COVID, we actually opened up a ghost kitchen. So what we did is we rented out space in a kitchen just outside of Vancouver. And once again, getting the POS and the integrations with Lightspeed up and running within a couple of days, we just pumped out takeout and delivery from this other restaurant. And it was one of those crazy things. You kind of like, gosh, this is what COVID is all about with restaurants, so should we do it? And we did it for like 2 months, and it was fun.
So you were partnering with another restaurant who had some excess space in their kitchen to do that?
Exactly, yeah. Very little investment. We just kind of went in there and got all of our packaging in there and set everything up and just did it.
Now, just to stay on that point for a minute, because there have been, you know, there was a big debate prior to COVID about ghost kitchens in general, which were operated by third parties. Then you have some companies that have done things like you've done, which is you've used space within. but also some companies we've talked to have said that they're going to continue those ghost kitchens, but allow their menu to be prepared in other restaurants to expand virtually without having to do new units. Is that part of your plan?
Well, I mean, not at the moment, but it's definitely been thought about. You know, we're just going to see where this next phase takes us. But it was relatively easy to do. You got to have some marketing behind it, but it's definitely in the plans for the future.
Okay, and so I mean, there are certainly a number of things there, and you know, Brodie, I would ask you the same question. You know, whether you did some specific things that you did have to change to meet the demand after the whole thing really got opened and locked down.
I mean, for me, the change, ironically for me, was that I had to increase my staffing, because when I first opened, it was just me. But I kind of opened on the down low with as little marketing as I could, because I knew I was going to have to do everything by myself when I first opened, and I'd spend the whole 12-hour days doing front of house and back of house by myself. As soon as I added the Uber to it and all the delivery integrations, it kind of exploded to busier than it ever was before, because my range and the ability to be in people's phones was almost instant, and I wound up having to basically add 2 to 3 more staff just to handle the demand on that end. But for us, mostly it's the back of house and kind of reorganizing how we workflow on that end to make sure things are okay. But
great. So, you know, if we could just sort of, Evan, are there other types of things that you have seen, because you work with so many different restaurants and different styles? You know, are there some very unique things that you've seen some people do to adapt?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's doing it differently. One thing that we've seen a lot is, you know, places that were doing, you know, cash only payments, switching over to card payments. You know, whether that's integrated or not, that was just something that, you know, needed to be done. And kind of, you know, this is a similar note that we've used before, but it was, you know, the trend has obviously already been shifting that way, but the pandemic just kind of put it into overdrive. Also focusing on things like, you know, we've talked a lot about order ahead and delivery, but kind of a separate, almost retail aspect, and whether that's in store or online. So like Dustin said, selling sauces, or I know a ton of, you know, restaurants and bars especially who can't open are now selling a lot of merchandise. You know, people want to be supporting local. You know, people will, if you've got your favorite bar that you can't go to and you find out that they're selling t-shirts, especially if they're selling it online, that's a great way to support people as they're going through it.
Well, that also gives some additional revenue streams in those things. Let me just remind our attendees today that if you have any questions, you know, please submit them, and we will get to them during the open Q&A, which will start in about 20 minutes or so. So why don't we just continue this conversation, if we could go to the next slide, please, where we're talking about additional revenue streams, because I think that Evan has brought it up now that some people have done things like groceries. I've seen farm markets. Panera, you know, was doing groceries actually, but smaller people are as well, because they discovered that suppliers could do it. But there are additional revenue streams that could be found here. Dustin, I'm going to put you on the spot. I didn't ask you this before, but if I remember, you said you are brewing your own beers.
No, we're not brewing our own beers yet. Once again, could be in the future plans, but we specialize in all local craft beer.
In local craft beers, because yeah. I did know some people in the beer business actually in Vancouver who went ahead and started making sanitizer. So
yes,
I'm not so sure that's a sustainable model, that they're going to continue to do that. But you did start selling sauces.
Yeah, we launched 4 sauces, and we've got much more on hand for the books. But we're launching those, selling them in our store. We'll soon be selling them online on our own with order ahead, and then we're also going to be selling them in some different outlets online, so that can be readily available for takeout delivery.
So I got to ask you, was that planned, or was that because of COVID that you decided to go into that?
No, yeah, it was sauce selling was always planned, but once again, right, some of these things have been planned for a while with restaurants, and then suddenly you're put to a spot where, well, hey, how can we get some additional revenue? and boom, there's our idea. Let's make it happen now.
Yeah, so what we found is that a lot of people who had different projects planned, many of them got accelerated, even if they couldn't get, well, if they were in a larger company, they couldn't get funding in the past, and all of a sudden delivery and online ordering goes in there. So Andrew, I think you also have some experiences of how you've turned some additional revenue streams in with merchandising and things as well.
Yeah, especially when we truly shut down for 2 weeks, we launched a store on Shopify to retail merchandise, which we had been selling for a long time, but it was just kind of refocuses you on these things when you see that the food sales aren't coming in for 2 weeks. How are we gonna, get a little bit of cash flow coming in? So it's something that we're not so much a brand new one, but it just calls to mind how important it is to have some things you can do that exist outside of the four walls of your restaurant. And I think one thing that we haven't implemented yet, but that I'm very interested in, is the sort of like David Chang Momofuku model, where you not only have restaurants, but you try and bring in some content to sort of unite your whole e-commerce thing around content that can generate some views to your website in a way that a restaurant can.
Great. And Brodie, did you also find some additional revenue streams?
Not overly, no. No, we've kind of just been sticking with what we have as it's been going. I haven't had the free time to go get merch printed. I'm still a one man show, and in terms of making our sauces to retail, it's a little bit more difficult to take things to retail in Quebec. The labeling laws and the language laws are a bit more intense, and also just the production side of not being able to do everything more than we already are.
So Brodie, hold the thought for a second. So Andrew, I believe in your introduction, you said you used to be in the IT business and technology.
Yeah, I worked in a customer support role at Shopify for about 3 years. So that was a real blessing sort of when we were hitting the pandemic. And I'm like, oh, well, this will be a quick project for me to get sort of the sales online, or in terms of things like integrating Stripe with our Lightspeed Orderhead. Stripe's an online payment processing platform.
Okay, so you actually had experience here on the retail side of that, and so you knew of a solution that you could quickly put in and integrate. So Brodie, I'm going to come back to you then. You mentioned the word data before. You mentioned the word data. I believe it had to do something with you were getting, because you had to go to online ordering and things, that you had some data coming in through the credit card data and knowing the customers. And I'm just curious as to where the opportunity lies in actually knowing your customers better than you might have known them before. Is there an opportunity there?
Yes. I mean, I know for sure there's I always reference to an old training video I first watched when I was starting work at 15. It was the Give 'em the Pickle retail video, and there's the example of him writing the name on the inside of the gas cap as a way of upselling to fill a tank the next time the person came through. So for sure, being the fact that I'm at the restaurant every day, all day, I've gotten to know all of our regular clients that come back and repeatedly come back, and I know what they generally order, what they would like, what they might like that's new, more on that kind of end.
But I think that a lot of customers didn't necessarily have control and know who their a lot of operators didn't know who their customers were. Even if they were in an environment where they made reservations, they didn't always know all the customer preferences and things. And now you guys clearly know through online ordering and that. And maybe Evan, maybe you want to just take a moment here and talk about how there might be new and additional revenue streams through the data that operators may or may not know that they have, but they have now.
Yeah, so I mean, we do point of sale, so data is really important. Even without necessarily talking about this additional revenue stream topic, data I think was a really big thing in being able to see what folks needed to stock more, even on an inventory level. One of the previous questions was about what are some of these new trends that you're seeing in customer preferences, but using things like looking back into your reporting and seeing, okay, obviously we're selling more takeout, we're running out of takeout containers, we're running out of all these sides that we're having to give with every order. So even using data to that level is really important. But in terms of this customer question about customers, kind of getting to know them better, additional revenue streams, you know, there's a bunch of loyalty programs out there. Lightspeed's got one. There's others that we integrate, and you know, they're around, but allowing you to kind of use that data and have it kind of concentrated, and allow you to then reach back out to your customers and say, hey, you know, you've been here a few times, or you haven't been here in a while. Let's offer you a discount. Let's offer you some incentive to return. And, you know, kind of building off what I think a lot of people are experiencing now, people want to shop local. People want to see what's in their neighborhood. So yeah, if you give your customers incentive to come back, then that's a great channel for additional revenue.
Take advantage of that data, and it's being collected by your point of sale or loyalty provider. You now have a way to go out back and market, which has always been a challenge for the restaurant industry, because loyalty programs really were not overly successful like they were in hotels and in travel. So you provide that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to tap into Andrew and his retail experience, because retailers absolutely slice and dice everything. So is there something that we should be sharing with the fellow operators here that you know that maybe they may or may not know from your Shopify experience, in the power of having more data about the customer and preferences that they should take advantage of, and you as well?
Yeah, I'd say one of the most basic sort of pieces of data that is valuable to track is just attributing your sales to a certain source of marketing. So a big piece of technology that's existed for a long time that I don't think is used by a lot of restaurateurs is UTM links. It's sort of a piece of code you can append to a link, for example, to our Lightspeed online ordering link, where there we could see whether the traffic that we're getting is coming from Instagram posts or a QR code that we have posted outside the restaurant. And that's not something that we've really integrated to the extent that we would like to, but it is something we can sort of track through our website provider to see, are we getting traffic driving from Instagram more so than in-person QR codes posted around the restaurant, or, you know, whatever other source of marketing.
Well, that does bring up some additional things there. And Evan and Lightspeed team, I hope you're looking at Andrew as a beta tester and somebody to actually help bring some of those things to light, given that experience. Dustin, you know, same question for you. You know, you started selling some retail, you're doing the ghost kitchen piece in there. Is there the opportunity here to use some of the new data available and some of these new things to actually build up some of these revenue streams going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're always looking at our product mix and looking at what's selling, what people are honing in on, what's going to work well for the travel of takeout and delivery. And like Evan touched on, we also use Lightspeed Loyalty, and it's been a great tool so far. I've been working with loyalty programs for years, and you know, loyalty kind of works with, it's all in your staff and what you're able to do with it. So if you're able to communicate with your guests, you know, and get everybody on board, and then, you know, grabbing their information from there, their emails and their phone numbers, and being able then to reach out and talk to your guests, especially at a time like this. I mean, you can use your social media as well, but loyalty is a great way to kind of market to your guests, offer them, you know, anything from just talking about a new feature. You know, you don't always have to be dealing with discounts. But it's a great way to reach out and still communicate with everybody when you're kind of in a lockdown.
Great. So if we could, just one last question before we move to the next one. You know, I know we all manage based upon day parts, and we really slice and dice an operation. Do you believe that the way the industry looks at, you know, comps and, you know, average checks and things is now going to change based upon the new day part, perhaps of pickup or delivery, which may have just been an add-on to a meal period, but now in fact may be a separate day part? Any one of you, I don't know if you're going to look at your business going forward differently.
I mean, I can go on that one a little bit. I think for what we're seeing in terms of our average checks is they're going much further down because there's no opportunity to upsell. And we were never really a sit-down restaurant, but if you were to sit down, you have your dinner, and then it's like, oh, I want dessert now. I'll come back and grab that. I'll grab a coffee. There's less of an opportunity to push those average bills and those average tickets up higher. And I think for a lot of people too, when you don't have the ability to sell alcohol, it's really hard to push those tickets up when you can only grab what you can grab on the way out, or in some cases, like in Quebec, you can't sell alcohol delivery yet.
Right. But you may be able to do alcohol delivery. We do know some places where they've been pushing that for years, and then all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, you can go ahead and do alcohol. And I doubt that those things are ever going to go backwards. that once it's out there. It's
We're
out
doing it
there.
here in BC, and I don't. They've extended it a few times now. And like you just said, Rob, I'd be surprised if it doesn't just continue. I mean, it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, actually thinking about that just a little bit, the mix of the sales have changed. So Brodie, to your comment, I would say that you do have an opportunity if your online ordering system is set up properly to actually suggestively sell and upsell and package, like the QSR guys do. You do have the opportunity to do that, but at the same time, there are some revenue streams that go down, like soda sales, which clearly impacts things, and of course on the other side, the alcohol sales that you might have in-house, and people may be doing their own. So there actually does need to be the opportunity to maybe think of some other things to add in, because they're getting some things at home. I don't know if any of you have taken a look at that side of it as well, or seen that kind of drop in profitability.
I could speak to that. In terms of our beer program, previously we'd sold more sort of local brewers to Ottawa, where we are, and generally people would order lower cost beers on the menu. But we're finding that with the local breweries doing a great takeout delivery operations of their own, we've sort of pivoted to finding slightly higher price, slightly harder to find drinks from sort of around the province. And so we had to make that kind of pivot to try to bring people interesting things they couldn't pick up at the liquor store or a local brewery, compared to just trying to sell delicious beer that goes well with the food.
There you go.
Well,
let's go to the next question, and let's just discuss delivery and takeout and online ordering. You had it before, but how does online ordering, takeout, and delivery really change, the way you look? And what your offering is today? There may be some people, by the way, that after this all over, only look at you as an online ordering and delivery company. So how does that really sort of change that for you? Maybe Andrew, you want to take a shot at that one to start?
Yeah, so we've shut down our dining room throughout the entire pandemic. We're a very small restaurant, and we don't really have the space to socially distance in a way that would feel safe for our staff or customers. So that's something that we think about a lot, is how do we maintain a sort of authentic and human connection with our customers when sometimes that relationship is totally mediated by Uber Eats or a pretty impersonal platform and experience. So little things in like Lightspeed, like just simply being able to record someone's phone number so I can take it down when they call to take an order again, and being like, oh, is this Lauren? Or it's looking like a more difficult way to bond with your customers, but still possible with the right sort of technology and design solutions.
Okay. Does anybody else, Evan, do you want to just sort of add to that as to how you see it playing into the future of how it's really going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of touch on what Andrew said about still trying to have a human connection when, people are ordering through apps. We've got delivery integrations that allow, Uber Eats and your DoorDashes to come through, and that's great for exposure and, getting people out there and on people's phones. But something that was really important for us recently was to kind of expand our order ahead offering instead of just doing local pickup, but to allow you to do first party delivery, right? So you want to be able to deliver, but not necessarily be going through these delivery channels. Now we've got the ability for somebody to place an order online, and if you so choose, you yourself or one of your staff, maybe you've got one delivery driver, you can still have that personal connection with somebody.
Great. Dustin, did you want to add to that?
Well, I think now, especially for us, I mean, in restaurants in general, we're trying to be a little bit of everything for everyone. If you take Maynard, for example, you guys were a fine dining restaurant, right? And then now suddenly, gosh, we're trying to do takeout and delivery. We're trying to do in-house dining, still keep that alive with all the new regulations. So the more you can offer to your guests, which maybe wasn't a specialty of yours in the past, kind of changing that menu and changing your packaging and being able to offer good takeout that's going to travel well, good delivery that's going to get there quickly, and then still have, a good in-house dining experience, with the regulations.
Brodie?
I mean, the one thing I kind of regret is spending so much on the design of my restaurant because no one really sees it. there's some regrets there. Like a better kitchen would have been money better spent on that end, but alas, we didn't really know what was going to happen. I think for us, the big focus is to optimize the speed that we can pump out volume, because the business model for us has always been high volume, low cost, fire as much food as we possibly can. We're not dealing with huge markups and huge costs, especially because we're doing everything hyper from scratch. So with some of the online apps taking a big chunk out of our very small profit as it is, has been a bit of a struggle, which is why there's some new integrations, especially in Montreal with Check Please, for an example, that's allowing things to be commission free, and trying to push our clients towards that end of things, and not being quite so much on the I'm losing all of my very tiny window of profit.
Well, the challenge there, and why don't we switch to the next question, because I think you've just once again cued us into it. You know, where you are talking about technology, you're talking about pushing your clients into it. We also know that many technologies become very popular by the customers, and then we have to adopt them and adapt to them and integrate with them if there's a buying platform, a loyalty platform in general, or put out. So, Evan, maybe you want to take this one to start, because technology is clearly going to play a key role in the future, and maybe you want to talk about where you see the future of dining and technology going.
Yeah, for sure. The future is here. First of all, everybody's adapting. Going from, like I mentioned before, going from maybe you're a cash business, maybe you've got an ATM, that's just not something that is acceptable anymore for a lot of people if they're ordering from you. What the technology I think is going to be able to do, if we're talking in the context of an order ahead, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, where when people are able to open up their dining rooms again, order ahead could be a great way to allow somebody to not order to pick up, but come and kind of plan out their meal. More of a kind of almost a ticket experience to dining. So then for the customer, they know they're going to be seated. They know that they're going to get their food if they're in a rush or anything like that. And then from a restaurateur's perspective, if enough people are using it, you've got a really good outline of what you're already going to need to prepare for that evening, and what you've already sold. The same ability to maybe you were talking about QR codes, Andrew. QR codes on tables that allow almost a touchless experience. So these are all things that are coming. It's a pretty exciting time to be looking into all this stuff.
All right, so you obviously at Lightspeed have to be able to adapt and adopt and put these things in place that your customers are asking for. So Andrew and Dustin, where do you see the main areas of technology going that the independent, the smaller to medium business, that only has so much to spend, time, money, and resources, where do you see the future of technology in your dining?
I mean, I think it's going to continue to spread everywhere. With the point of sale, with takeout, with delivery, and with all the integration, I've seen more of a focus now moving into the kitchen with technology, and like moving well beyond, even kitchen display systems now and cloud-based systems. And so I can see that being a big part of where technology is going. And then just as an operator, it's a lot of info to take in. It's a lot of info to swallow, and you've got to educate and train your staff. And that's a big part of it as well, because everyone's got to be able to understand all this stuff in order to make it work.
Yeah, to expand on what Dustin's saying there, totally. It's about making things comprehensible. A lot of the time, I think, is the role of technology. So for example, we want to keep an eye on labor and food costs, and integrating Lightspeed with our shift management situation with 7 shifts, and trying to integrate it with our inventory management system as well, to try and keep down labor costs that are unreasonable, or to make sure we're not holding too much inventory that we don't necessarily need to have sitting around in the basement. So just using technology to give a clear picture of the business to make informed decisions about strategy when you need to make choices quickly is going to be very important.
And nobody really can do everything. It is about integration. And, I note that even Lightspeed has lots of integration partners in different areas. And it does take partnerships that come out there. So as you, Andrew, have just pointed out, integration is very key as new things have to change to move quickly. So one more question. I'd like to move to the Q&A. We've been getting a lot of questions actually through Q&A. So, but what do you see, are your main challenges, right now? And Andrew, you might want to start with that one. But really, what are the big challenges that you see going forward? Not just right now, but also where you see the challenges going in the future.
One of the big things is what we were kind of talking about there is the training piece, where you might have people who are excellent cooks or incredible servers, but who are not oriented towards the sort of technology and the steps you need to make sure that your API connection between Uber Eats and your point of sale is functioning properly. So it's going to be a lot about sort of adapting to our training systems and how we onboard and train our staff to make sure that they can be up to speed and comfortable with the technology when things don't work perfectly.
Great. So training for you. So Brodie, how about you?
I think our biggest challenge right now, especially in that I've seen, is kind of getting people to want to eat out and to not like stay at home as much as possible. I mean, obviously delivery is our main focus, and that's most of my business, which it's a big challenge to think of as a chef. The food that I'm making is going in a cardboard box and then it's completely out of my hands by the time it gets to the client. And that's been a big adjustment for me, where I'm used to actually putting a plate in front of someone and serving them the food directly. So that's been a mess up on my end, and also getting used to the amount of technology that's sitting in my restaurant now. I mean, I still won't switch to a kitchen display system because I'm old school and like paper. But that's probably not far away with the amount of online ordering and the amount of possible
and contactless for your own staff.
That as well.
Play in that particular one as well, which just pushes it along.
Mm-hmm.
So old school will become new school.
Exactly.
Dustin, your challenges?
Our main challenge right now is really just attracting sales in this situation we're in this pandemic. Like Brodie just mentioned, a lot of people are still reluctant to go out. And so, you have to be able to convince your guests that you are doing all of your sanitization, regulations, you're providing that safe environment, but also making them feel comfortable in your dining room, like it's not a science lab. So just, building that confidence back into your guests and getting them back out into your restaurant. And then while doing all that, just, focusing on the technology, because it is a lot, and keeping the staff trained, keeping them informed, and just getting that product out through takeout and delivery. That's quality still.
Great. So, Evan, is there a main challenge out there, a single challenge that you see that you believe is actually going to be, whether they recognize it or not, as operators, because you're also an operator? Is there one that is coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I think this echoes everybody a little bit, but I think it's in terms of staffing and training, and even thinking about whether or not you're going to pursue, a cloud-based point of sale or not, is the confidence in the technology. It's especially for people who haven't used a lot of, that level of cloud-based kind of technology in the restaurants. It's the confidence of what happens if something goes down. I'm not going to know how to fix it. What happens if A, B, C, D, etc. So, the main challenge, I think, is just, at least for us, is reassuring and making sure that people know that, there's support systems to back them up. But I think confidence is a big one. That's going to change over time. But.
Yeah, but that challenge, if we were having this conversation 5-6 years ago, I think it would have been a bigger challenge. Today, I actually started my career as a restaurant manager. And I used to tell people that when we started talking in restaurants about high-speed internet access, that it's like a pilot light on a stove. If you lose your connectivity and you lose your electricity, you're probably down. If you lost your stoves and your gas and everything, you're probably down, right? So today, at least it's more reliable. We really don't think about wireless and connectivity today, so at least that backbone is there. So we've got some great questions that have come in from the audience. So I'd sort of like to cue on some of these, and then we'll wrap up with a final question for all of you. You know, wellness, and a number of you have talked about your staff. One of our audience has really talked about how stressful a time it is for everybody today, and they're sort of curious on how you are focusing on mental wellness. I suppose your own, mental wellness of your staff, and also, you know what, it's pretty darn stressful out there for the customers as well. Andrew,
yeah, sorry, I was muted there. Number one thing for us is just trying to maintain a price point and a profit margin where we can offer benefits to our staff. That's a huge one that is difficult to do in the restaurant industry, and that I think is becoming more and more necessary. And the other side of that is like sort of the wellness of people in our community, because there's many, being downtown in Ottawa, we serve a lot of people who struggle with housing, struggle with work, or with just the general like kind of mental weight of the pandemic. So figuring out how to be a little bit redistributive as a restaurant, setting up some kind of program to where our costs are high enough for our customers that we can afford to give both to our staff and to our community is really important.
So the community connection there, the staff connection in there as well. Dustin or Brodie?
Yeah, you know, I just make sure I talk to my staff every day. I mean, I work alongside them, and you know, we're doing work stuff together, but you know, we also spend a lot of time together, and just, you know, they see the systems we're putting in place, you know, that makes them comfortable. It makes them feel better about coming into work and knowing they're coming in, you know, somewhere safe. Therefore, that can translate over to the guest, and you know, they help make the guests feel comfortable. So, you know, it's just that ongoing communication, you know, with your staff. It is tough at times, you know, and you know, everyone's wondering how everyone's feeling and everything, but you know, it's just trying to maintain that comfort level, and you know, just, you know, provide that safe environment.
Brodie?
Yeah, same. I mean, I have 3 employees plus my girlfriend, so we're a very tight-knit group. Everyone's been here since day 1, basically, or week 4 or whatever it was that they wound up jumping in. Everything is as tight as we can possibly be. There's only one cook in the kitchen with me at any point, so we're tight enough where it always feels safe, and we're very much family. And I treat my staff as if they were my best friends or my brother or sister or my kids, even though they're basically the same age as me. But that it's very much in that, like, I will take care of people, and I bought a coffee machine mostly for my staff, but also because let's sell a couple coffees here and there, but mostly so that everyone has a coffee and doesn't have to worry about spending $4 at a coffee shop across the street to go
I imagine
have a latte.
You know, people are saying how challenging it is to be home all the time with their family, and you're at home and at work with yours. So, hey, Evan, I think you said that you rolled up your sleeves and you went into support to help provide support and really do jack of all trades, because training might not have been out there as much. So what about the stressness and wellness of providing support? What are your customers? How are they coming across?
Everybody's different, but I think, you know, the main thing to consider is just empathy, and you know, that's from both sides. That's, you know, whether we're, you know, the Lightspeed hat on or the operator hats on, everybody's going to handle the situation differently. So, you know, being patient and just, you know, making sure that you know, you can be as supportive as possible. I think that's been a big key, and empathy is at an all-time high right now. So we're all not the most excited as we could be with what's happening right now, but I think just knowing that you know, you've got your community and you know, to support you is important.
It is an all-time high, but people are getting frustrated, you know, as well. So it does, you really have both. You have people that are understanding of the situation, but then, you know, it is a stressful thing. When people call in, we all know in call centers, usually it's not always the pleasant thing that they're calling in about, but now you have the added personal stress. You know, we talked about marketing a little bit. We talked about using the data, and we talked about loyalty and some of the integration that you have with the delivery services, with the loyalty programs, and also what Lightspeed is offering itself. We have somebody who's asked a question about the marketing side, and what they would like to know is if you have any feedback on marketing to the plus 50 folks, or is most of the guests 30 and under? I don't know who'd like to take that one.
I mean, for me, as a vegan restaurant, most of our clientele would be under the age of 30. There's kind of two groups in the vegan community. There's the guys and the men and women who have been in it for 20, 30 years, who are, I find, absolute troopers to have wound up vegan in the 90s, when there was impossible to find any sort of foods that were easily accessible, especially compared to what we have now with the way the vegan food has gone. Yeah, from us, most of my clients are under 30, and in which case social media is super easy. Facebook seems to reach more of the older crowd for us. That's the best bet I have.
Okay, either one of you experiences 50 plus, or is it all under 30 that's doing most of the ordering and everybody else is cooking at home?
I mean, burgers being a big comfort food, we see quite an age range at BRGR. On the online platforms and delivery platforms, it's hard to tell, but dining in and just from the experience of the restaurant since February, we see a good mix of age. The social platforms do market, a little more to the younger generation, but as Brodie said, where Instagram is the hotter one now, and TikTok, we've got Facebook, which reaches a lot of the 55 plus. So, it's something that kind of touches on everybody.
Right. And one last question, and then I have a wrap-up question for you. And these are terrific questions submitted by the audience, and there's some we're not getting to, but we'll try to answer them offline. You all have to do packaging, and we know it takes time to print stuff. And somebody actually asked the question about, is branding an important part of your takeout supplies? Because you probably couldn't have been prepared. So I don't know, Brodie, you're shaking your head, so.
Yeah, I mean, being, of course, a vegan restaurant, we really are pushing towards as local as we can. So we've got a local manufacturer that's doing all these things, and everything is super compostable. And I bought a stamp, so it gives that rustic home feel. It's very much a server and a stamp, stamping a paper bag, very old school, very rough, but it definitely works for getting the branding across rather than having to go to like high printed fast food cartons.
Andrew?
Yeah, it's something we're just sort of starting to take more seriously, is trying to get branded stickers and things to attach to the product, because it's quite easy to get that brand across when you get some face-to-face time with a customer. But yeah, we're trying to get stickers and stamps and a lot of stuff printed, while also kind of focusing on the merch. And one thing we've had a lot of success with is, rather than printing gift cards, we've kind of printed up a little wooden currency. We make little Bao bucks, and distributing those, whether when there's a problem with an order or when someone purchases something as a gift card, is a nice little branding piece that can sit in their wallet.
So we're going to move to the last question, and Dustin, I'll ask you to handle that one first. But by the way, Dustin, I was going to tell you, I do know a couple of burger places that actually got brands, and they're branding the burgers, themselves.
Oh yeah, you see the sticker everywhere you go with our packaging. The custom stuff, gets a little expensive, and the minimums are huge. So a nice bright sticker or stamp really helps out.
Right. Well, let's bring this one home. So just a short, immediate thought. So Dustin, what does the future of the restaurant industry look like long term for you?
Well, like I said earlier, I think the future for us is a little bit of everything to everyone. So offering that amazing, quick, quality takeout, right? That you are somewhat in control of, getting that delivery out in the same speed and quality that you're not in control of, and then wowing them in the dining room. We've got to do all three of those. Master them all, and cater to everybody, and hopefully you get a little bit of everyone's love.
Great, thank you, Brodie.
I think as Andrew was saying at the beginning of this, that the industry is moving towards more of the fast casual, more of the pickup, more of the quick, easy, especially in larger cities. I know in Montreal, we have a plethora of restaurants, and the ones that are having the hardest time are some of the old school fine dines that aren't willing to adapt, or frankly can't adapt because their business model just does not allow putting things into a cardboard box and sending it on its way. and it's going to be years before everything's back to normal, vaccine, COVID or not. The recovery of confidence is going to be a while. So I think really
we don't
the
really
future
know
for
what
the
the
next few
new
years
normal
is
really
this.
is going to be, right? For the
Yeah,
long
the future for this is going to be very much, we're looking at fast casual and takeout for at least a few more years.
Great. Andrew?
Yeah, really just echoing the same theme of accessibility, whether that's a menu that's accessible and lower cost and easy for takeout, a culture in your kitchen that's more accessible and less macho or racist, and accessible marketing that anyone can quickly click and get your food.
Great. And Evan, close us up here both with your operator hat and your Lightspeed hat on. You know, how does the future of the restaurant industry look long term to you?
Yeah, optimistic. You know, seeing how people are able to pivot, and even in the state we're in right now, you know, whether we have a vaccine soon or whether there is a new normal or not, I'm optimistic. You know, we're all in this together. I'd say, you know, the main things to think about: stay visible, you know, stay online, and, you know, keep it human. People want to be interacting with local businesses, so embrace that.
It is about the interaction, and certainly the food service and restaurant business is at the middle of it. And, you know, certainly Lightspeed, you know, providing so many people who connect with their community is there. I want to thank our panelists today. Actually on the slide just before, but you can get this information afterwards as well. There is information to go take a look at each one of their operations, and certainly the IFBTA as well. I want to thank all of our speakers for your final thoughts. We are at the end of our time, and I'd like to again thank them, also Lightspeed for sponsoring this session, but more importantly for all of you in the audience for attending and joining us. As a reminder, there is a recording of this session. And we would like you to take just a moment before you sign off just to fill out the short poll. And if you haven't done it already, we'd like you to do that. And again, I really want to thank our speakers, and on behalf of Lightspeed and the International Food and Beverage Technology Association, I thank you for joining us today, and we'll check in again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, everyone.